All right,
Start
you
chapter
got,
1.
y-
Welcome to
why don't we
God's
actually
Christian Book Club.
God's Christian Book Club? That is not what this is.
Wait, what is this again?
This is
God's Not Dead.
This
There
is
we
the
go.
God's Not Dead
God's Not
podcast. Welcome. If this is your first time here, then that's awesome. If this is you're returning from the first episode that we did, that's even more awesome. So. But no, it's we're glad that if you guys are actually taking this seriously, and yeah. So this episode 2, if you haven't watched episode 1, is basically just introduction of the book that we're going through called Born Again Christian. It's a frank discussion on pornography and masturbation and some good stuff. And I have if you haven't seen, if this is your first time here, then you can just go down into the on the Podbean site, on my site here on the feed, the first episode. You can go, there's a download link to follow along with the book that we're going through, and you can just start out with the introduction if you want to. It just kind of explains exactly what, this book is going to cover, and kind of gives it kind of lays the land out a little bit to, for what the whole book is all about. So, yeah.
Introduction.
No.
So yeah, like we said, every 10-15 minutes per episode, and we try to do each chapter, because each chapter is only 1 to 2 pages, 2 pages at max, and so there's a lot to go through and talk about, and there's not a lot of reading per chapter. So we will start off with this episode by going ahead and reading the first chapter, A Tall Glass of Toilet Water.
All right, well, I will go first.
You can go first.
Chapter 1, A Tall Glass of Toilet Water. God tells us that his people tend to satisfy their thirst not by drinking from his streams of living water, but instead drinking from man-made toilets. This metaphor is particularly adept in a world where men such as Tom Lakis, Dr. Drew, Howard Stern, and a legion of men's magazines and porno providers become wealthy by selling glasses of toilet water to thirsty men across our nation.
It's all good.
Many of whom claim to be sons of God. Meanwhile, the church alone has access to the living water from God's perfect word, but largely fails to teach men masculinity in any area, particularly regarding their sexuality. The causes for the sin of omission are many. First, there is a propensity in many churches to take sexuality out of the hands of theologians and place it in the hands of secular counselors, whose philosophy is dominated by unbiblical evolutionary concepts of humanity, and there's lots of big words in this.
Mm-hmm.
This error prevents the... Oh, wait.
I like how you forget gender.
Humidity...
Humidity.
Humanity and gender.
Thank you.
This error prevents the church from speaking about men and women because they're only permitted to see... Big word. Androgynous? That's
about right.
Yeah,
I think so.
androgynous. They were only permitted to see androgynous humanity. Second, oh my God, the effeminate nature of pastors and churches causes many masculine men to feel unwelcome in what they perceive as an organization solely for women, children, and weaker men. Third, there is a timidity among weak pastors to wade into controversial issues in general and sexual ones in particular. Lastly, the sad truth is that many pastors are also enslaved to their own sexual sins or are languishing in unfulfilling and infrequent sex with their wives, and therefore are unable to speak of sexual matters out of a sense of disqualification.
All right. Here. Yeah. If we're laughing about this, we're not. We're totally taking this seriously.
This book uses a lot of big words that...
Hey, Gabe, and
Yeah.
I or anybody else cannot pronounce.
So we taken a laugh just because of, the words, not necessarily just,
Not the
That this-
text. That's
Yeah.
not the
No.
text. It's just the big
It's-
words.
Yep.
It's the big words that we don't know how to say. Go Dylan.
To speak of the matters of pornography and masturbation, I must speak frankly as the scriptures do on important issues. In 2 Timothy 3:16, God says through Paul that all scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. These scriptures that God breathed for our profit include the very frank discussions of sexuality throughout the Song of Songs and Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 16:25-27, God says, "At the head of every street you build your lofty place and made your beauty of abomination, offering yourself to any passerby, or
Passerby.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
passerby, and multiplying your whoring." I hope I said that right.
Whoring.
Okay. You also played the whore with the Egyptians, your lustful neighbors, multiplying your whoring to provoke me to anger. Behold, therefore, I stretched out my hand against you and diminished your allotted portion, and delivered you to the greed of your enemies, the daughters of the Philistines, who were ashamed of your lewd behavior.
Oh, hey, it's me.
Go blue.
Also in Ezekiel 23:18-21, God says, "When she carried on her whoring so openly and flaunted her nakedness, I turned in disgust from her, as I had turned in disgust from her sister. Yet increasing in her whoring, remembering the days of her youth when she played the whore in the land of Egypt, and lusted after her primers there, whose members were like those of donkeys, and whose issues were like that of horses. Thus you longed for your lewdness in your youth, when the Egyptians handled your bosom and pressed your young breasts." God basically called his people tramps for lifting their shirts up like it was Mardi Gras and chasing men with huge penises and semen missions like fire hoses. Okay.
That's weird. That was
really
weird.
I won't refute that. That's a little weird for me too. While God spoke frankly to Israel, he certainly did not crass like some meathead high school boys killing time in a locker room. God is honest and forthright about the truth, and his people must not be so prudish as to try and speak in the ways that they are holier than God. In our age of lewdness and perversion, we, like our Father, must avoid crashness, while boldly speaking frankly about the joy and the beauty of sexual intimacy when it is confined by the loving directions of the God who created both of us and our desires. And we must refuse to speak in sanitized clinical euphemisms, like calling adulterers affairs and fornication dating and perverts partners. Because God uses frank words for deplorable sin, so we feel its sickness without, I don't even know that word.
Anesthesia, I think.
Anesthesia.
Yeah, anesthesia. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was chapter 1.
Chapter 1, a tall glass of confusing words.
All right, Dylan. What did you get out of that?
Well, there's a lot in there. To be honest, it's kind of hard to. A lot of it was just a lot of
Explain.
vocabulary. So, like, trying to understand the whole concept of this chapter is a little bit difficult here.
I understood it perfectly.
There are a lot of big words in this book. I can tell you that now.
There are big words that.
Well, they can hear that obviously because they're listening. But yeah, no, it's definitely not going to be easy
you
deciphering.
You need a dictionary right next to you just to understand some of these words.
Yeah.
The first thing I see is just Dr. Drew. It has my name. I'm so proud.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm just kind of skimming over the first paragraph here.
Kind of just skimming over the whole thing. Crap.
Saying that Shoot.
The
I
thing,
re- I
okay,
read
can I
that
speak
wrong.
real quick?
Yeah, no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay, towards the end, like the last sentence of the last paragraph, they said, we must refuse to speak in sanitized clinical euphemisms like calling adulteries affairs, fornication dating, and perverts partners, because God uses frank words for deplorable sin, and so we will feel its sickness without anesthesia. So what he's saying, what this person is saying, like, if you commit adultery, it's adultery, not an affair. Like, you're committing adultery.
Those are just kind of those
Words
are
that we make it more
yeah,
pleasant.
to
They're-
make it more sound.
they're
better.
they're classifications that we've come up with, and it's it's all the same thing. It's not if you can't call it by its name,
Yeah,
adultery is adultery.
You're
It's
just trying to hide it and make it better. Like,
you're trying to
make it seem what it's not.
fall it under a class like, oh yeah, well it's just
It's just we're
just
dating.
he's just a pervert,
We're just like, he's just my partner.
but
But in all reality, it's just a friend with benefit. He's a pervert.
yeah, no, that's good to know.
That's what they're getting at.
Yep, no, that's good. I'm just
Well, I got my 2 cents in. I gotta go. My sister just got here, so.
okay.
You guys have a wonderful evening, day, night, wherever you're at.
I thought you said
I'm not dating anybody.
I thought you said evening date for a second.
Evening, day.
Yeah,
Tally ho.
tally ho.
Why? There we go. Thank
There
you.
we go.
Well, see it. Well, let's see here. Well, I mean, yeah, he got his
2 cents.
his stuff out. So, I'm trying to look.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking here too. It's not.
The introduction was a lot easier to figure out. There's just
A lot of big words.
yeah.
But most of these I can actually understand. It's just that I just got to look up some of these words, but for the most part I can actually understand most of it. Because I mean, like the second paragraph, it's basically saying we've kind of just allowed sex to fall out of the church. We've stopped talking about it because it's just a thing that we don't talk about in the church, but it's one of the things that God talks about, so why don't we talk about it in church? Because it feels bad to bring it up in church? Because you feel bad just bringing it up in general. I mean, it's omitted in the church because people don't really like hearing about that kind of stuff. It's like, ew, pastor, you're talking about sex. Why don't you just class it up and just talk about, like, forgiveness and stuff like that? But, I mean, forgiveness is great and all, and everything else that we...
But you have to acknowledge
the
that
fact.
before forgiveness. I mean, yeah, you have to. That's exactly it.
We have to acknowledge that.
And no, we're in a generation now too that there's a lot of, quote unquote, being offended by stuff, and that also plays a part in it. Not there's a lot less people nowadays that won't just go straight forth with the truth and stuff like that.
They like to beat around the bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Beat the dead horse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something. I think I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was.
Don't remember. If I keep talking, I just like bore them to death with my voice.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Oh yeah. Maybe I can find. Why does my phone do this? Stop.
I'm reading I'm skimming the first paragraph because I think I got some.
You got something, but you just.
I don't know.
How to phrase it.
I have an idea. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what. Gosh, yeah. I'm trying to figure this out here.
Well, I could talk about, like, even during reading this, when I was reading my parts, which was basically saying whoring a lot, I felt uncomfortable about that, because, I mean, I don't like that word. That word just feels horrible to say that, but to be honest, it also just, like, it is what it is, I guess. So it's kind of just, I understand that why nobody wants to talk about it. I also understand that it needs to be talked about too. It's just like, it's hard to read that kind of stuff because it's just like we sometimes put ourselves in that position where we think we're talking about ourselves, and when we start thinking that it's talking about us, it just, we use a different word for that, but basically, yeah, it's kind of true the way.
Yeah, well, I think I remember what I was going to say on that. Definitely, because there's a lot of people, because, I mean, just if it was in a church environment, you could be around people that you've gotten to know, and a lot of people nowadays, especially in the church, if you have committed something like that, like adultery, or if you've done anything sexual, premarital, sexuality, like, had sex before marriage, if you've done anything, if you've, raped, if you anything that is, like that, you're in an environment where a lot of people will hate you, and even in a house of God, so to speak, because that's, usually what it, I guess that's a good term for that, for the church, but it's people are most likely afraid that they'll lose, and a lot of people actually get, because if people don't talk about it, they get kicked out. Usually, I've seen and heard of like people getting kicked because they've they've went with the Lord, they've confessed, and they're getting and they're talking about this, and trying to fix what they've done, and through God and stuff, and people just like, oh yeah, you've done this, we don't want you, you bad reputation for our church. Well, the church is based off of ganging, getting people together to be able to help with that instead of rejecting them. Churches nowadays just feel like they're rejecting people, and you have to be perfect, like, because not everyone knows what what you've done when you enter the church. Oh, you're welcome. Everyone's welcome to any church, really, and they don't know if you've had any issues or just minor stuff, and then, oh yeah, no, you're out, you've done this, you've done that, we don't want you anymore. So no, it's definitely plays a part in it. So
Jesus came to help the sick, not the healthy.
Exactly. So,
and we're all sick in one way or another.
But
wow, that really hurts.
I'm just trying to see what else, because we're starting to get close to the 20-minute mark, which is pretty surprising. Actually, time is flying by pretty quickly.
Well, I figured we'd get to 20 minutes because, I mean, it's actually we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, this is our second one, so I'm not sure what our schedule and what time, how long these episodes are going to last, which, I mean, I don't care if they last for hours, but I'm pretty sure you guys do, but there's, there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. And I think, let's see here.
Dr. Drew. If you're reading along, just look at Dr. Drew. They're talking about me. I'm sorry. It's just, my name's Drew, and it's hard not to acknowledge that because my name is rarely ever seen anywhere except with Drew Barrymore and Drew Brees. There it is.
I don't seem to get, because we covered, I still don't know what episode, I think just the first paragraph, I don't know, it just kind of...
There's something there, but you can't figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. We got the second paragraph. I'm not sure about the third paragraph. I just read through that, skimmed through that. I'm not sure if that really explains anything. It's just mostly, scripture. Quoting from scripture. Gabe covered the last paragraph about, people just choosing to come up with different reasons in, for having an affair, calling it something else. That was good. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think I can find anything. A lot of I just shoot. Gosh, yeah. I don't know. Maybe we could put it at there, and because there is even if people do use it, there is a comment section on the page, and if people actually start to engage and follow with us, then we can, and then they can help elaborate, and we can kind of start like a little conversation there. That's a thing. So
Definitely do those. Look at those comments and stuff like that. So I mean, hey.
Yeah, no, that's something we could do. So yeah, that should be. I think we'll call that a plan. But yeah, no, I just wanted to. I mentioned to Gabe and Drew earlier. Gabe's gone, but I mentioned to them earlier before we started this that I was thinking that if because a lot of churches when they're done with their sermon you can they usually do they have a little if if you need some prayer you can come up to the front or something or the pastor can speak with you personally or that but so because of that I was thinking that maybe if if you guys need some kind of if you want us to pray for you we can definitely do that because I pray for my friends all the time even if they're doing fine it just there's no problem with that so
Thank you.
pray you're welcome but
yeah.
yeah if you just let us know there is like I said there's a comment section or I don't think I left any kind of contact information or email or anything like that but for now you can just leave it down because I don't some people I don't know if they want their stuff public but I could probably
I could make a different one just so I don't have to worry about that. But I mean, again,
I could try to see if I can figure out if I can put my email somewhere somewhere on my God's Not Dead podcast. Excuse me, Podbean page. I don't know because there's not a lot of room to put stuff. You can just it's just a page to upload your episodes. I don't know if I can put any contact info, but I'll try to. So if you don't want your prayers public or if you want to talk to me personally about something, that's totally fine. I can try it. We can, talk back and forth personally. But if not, if you totally feel comfortable, just drop a prayer or something you want to talk about, start a conversation in the comment section of this second episode. So I just want to thank you guys a lot for tuning in for this second episode. And like I said, last episode, every Wednesday we'll be meeting and there's no kind of live. I can't make this live or anything like that.
unless we go on Twitch.
Yeah. And on Podbean itself, you can't live stream on Podbean. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I haven't figured it out yet. So, so we'll upload. I'll have the episode uploaded every Wednesday because we start at 6:30. So make 7:30, 8 o'clock. We'll have each episode uploaded. So, and I promise that I won't miss an upload. Trust me. So, we want
If he
to.
misses an upload, I can slap him.
Yeah, exactly. So this is an interesting book, and we should. It's good to go through it. So, anyways, don't want to spend too much of the rest of your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and until next time.